Yeah, it is. You want to join it? So I'll do it. I'll do it.
What do you need to do with this? Huh? What do you need to do with this? Give it to any Israeli soldier. You first one you take. I'm a U.S. U.S. Marine gave it to him.
Thank you very much.
Thank Hashem.
Thank you.
Hi, Felice.
Hi, Harold. How are you?
Oh, good. I just got home from a flight back from New York. I'm a little tired.
Oh, a little tired. You must be very tired.
Yeah, my arms are tired.
Your arms are tired?
Well, I flew back from New York. The old joke.
How is everybody?
Good, good. We were at a wedding in New York. My first cousin's grandson got married, and we're close to the people. It was very nice. It was a coincidence because my cousin's grandson ended up marrying the daughter of a friend of Rivka and Racheli.
Oh my gosh.
So they got invited from both sides.
Oh, nice.
It was very nice. Very nice.
Very nice.
It seems like if you would have thought of this shit, there's no way in the world, because my cousin, they're from Borough Park. They're very Brooklyn people, and this guy's a professor at YU.
Oh,
Somehow the kids clicked. They clicked.
wow. Huh. That's unusual.
Yeah,
The people from Borough Park.
The kids did it by themselves. You know,
That's very unusual.
Yeah, something in Israel. I don't know what happened. Something or other. It worked. Whatever it is, it worked.
Hashem, it worked.
It worked.
It worked that they did it on their own. Wow, that's
Yeah,
so
well,
nice.
some friends mentioned it, and I think my cousin's divorced, so I think he told the mother, not the father, and the mother's his birth mother is more modern, so I think that's how it started. Anyway, whatever, they're happy.
Very nice.
He learns in the mirror, brisk. I don't know. He's a big learner,
Uh-huh.
not from my side.
But the father, it teaches at YU?
No, from the girl's father. The girl's
The
father
girl's
teaches at YU, and my cousin's son is this class action lawyer. He's like, I don't want to say he's mishpacha, but I don't like what he does. But anyway,
Okay, it all worked out.
hey guys.
That's
Hello.
Mazel tov,
Hello.
Peggy,
Hey,
mazel
Mazel
tov.
Tov.
Oh yeah,
Thank
Fegi
you.
Mazda, Fegi Mazda.
Thank you.
Very nice. How's everybody?
Harold, where have you been, Harold? I missed you.
I've been in New York.
Oh, nice.
I just got back.
Okay.
You're home or you in the desert?
No, I'm home.
How was nice and warm there?
Well, it was very smoky. It was crazy. The
Oh,
first
you
day
were
that
there.
that smoke came in, you couldn't breathe. I was in Manhattan. I had to leave. Terrible.
Oh,
The
God.
sky was all orange. Everybody's wearing masks. It's crazy.
The kids weren't allowed to play outside.
I know. It's those damn Canadians.
But they didn't even
So what
feel
is it? Smoggy? It's like smoggy?
No, it was like burnt. It was like a burnt smell from it was forest fire, but it's very orange. The sky turned a weird color. You're in Manhattan. You couldn't see the skyscrapers. It was all covered.
They felt
And the
it more in
sun was like
New
weird
York
color.
than in Canada. I asked them in Canada, they didn't even feel it so much.
No, because the wind blew. It started in Alberta. They got the smoke from Alberta. It went all the way across Canada and ended up in New York. Nuts.
I'll send them tomorrow now to the
So Ernie, you taking Tzvika into the practice since he's a doctor?
We asked him yesterday at shul, what should we call him? Should we call him Dr. Tzvika?
Yeah. Very nice. He had that whole get up with the gown. I thought he was transitioning. Got nervous there.
Oh, you were in New York.
Yeah.
So nice.
So we're flying back, and there's a Hasidic couple sitting next to us on the plane. So I asked them when they get off, "Oh, are you visiting? Are you?" That's the first time they ever came to Los Angeles, and they showed me the list of all the restaurants. So I said, "Where are you staying?" They're staying in Glendale at an Airbnb. I'm saying, do you know how far that is? It's like not near anything. There's no shul there. You're gonna stick out like a sore thumb, unless you speak Armenian. Says no, he booked it. He can't change. I said, who told you to book in Glendale?
It was probably a good deal. Probably a good deal.
Like a big house with many
I
rooms.
saw the house. I saw a picture of the house. I looked it up. It's a very nice house. It's in Glendale. What's even
You can go to the ABC store. There's a store there, Susie and I found a lot of, that had a lot of vegetarian, all those soy products, because
Oh, where? Where in Glendale?
No, but that was before the internet.
you know, the Glendale Adventists, they don't eat meat.
Oh, right.
They have a store called the
Melinda, yeah.
ABC store. So many years ago, we used to buy chili and all sorts of
Oh,
stuff.
Now
right.
we have Amazon.
the group. Post your
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, just.
I was surprised even Ralph's. They have so much
Okay.
Parv cheese and a crazy amount.
Yeah, and they have
Big
Impossible,
business.
Possible Burger, Beyond Meat stuff, meatballs. We eat a lot of that, the Beyond Meat meatballs.
Yeah,
They're better than regular meatballs.
Well,
I don't know, I like them.
but the salt is high. The sodium is high, isn't it? Don't they have a lot of sodium?
They have sodium.
we like sodium.
I mean, It's got low
Right,
fat.
Esty?
It's
Don't we
much
like
less,
sodium?
much less fat than
Esty.
regular meat.
Esty, we like sodium.
Yeah, now. I love sodium. That's the problem.
Okay, so we started Perek Hay. We're actually in the middle of the first pasuk. Shlomo haya moshel b'chol. Shlomo HaMelech was apparently the most successful king in that time, in that whole region. Min anar eretz plishtim, vad gvul Mitzrayim, magishim mincha v'ovdim et Shlomo kol yimei chayav. There was his monarchy was very successful. We went through some of it last week. I want to read a Gemara in Sanhedrin Chaf Amud Beis. Amrei Shlokish. Betchila Malach Shlomo al Elyonim. Shlomo was so great that he ruled over even the celestial beings. As it says in Divrei Yomim, Vayeshev Shlomo al Kisei Hashem. Ulvasov Molach al Tachtonim. In the end, he ruled over earthly creatures. Shenemar Kihu Rodeh B'chol Evra Anar Mitpasach Ve'ad Azah. We're going to have a pasuk which shows that he basically ruled the whole known world. Ulvasof lo malach al Yisrael, but he went down. In the end, he ended up king only over the Jews, like it says in Koheles. Ani Koheles, hayisi melech al Yisrael b'Yushalayim. Ulvasof lo malach ela al Yerushalayim. In the end, his kingdom contracted, so that he only ruled over Yerushalayim. As it says, Divrei Koheles ben David, Melech Yerushalayim. Ulvasof lo malach el al mitaso. In the end, he only ruled over his bed. Shenemar in Shir Hashirim, Hine mitaso sheli Shlomo. It describes Shlomo's bed. Ulvasof lo malach el al maklo. In the end, he just had his stecken, he had like a walking stick. That's all. Shenemar and Kohelet, v'zeyach chelki mikol amali. He was only left with that. He didn't rule over all of these vast kingdoms his whole life, in a certain part of his life. That's why it says here, Shlomo haya moshel b'chol hamamlachot. But kol yemei chayav, but it wasn't all his, lo melech b'sof yamav, because of Ashmodai Melech Hashedim. We're going to go through a story later on that eventually a demon sort of dressed up like Shlomo, took his place, and he vrichum namalchus, and then Shlomo wandered the roads. Later on, he came back. So we'll save that. But anyways, this dominance of Shlomo was not necessary for his whole life. Pasuk Beis. Vayi lechem Shlomo liyom echad. For Shlomo HaMelech's table, shloshim kor solet. He needed 30 kor. These are vast bushels. How much does this say? No. Yeah, the Abarbanel says enough to feed 60,000 people. I don't know whether that's a guzma or not. He had, meat and wine and bread. So shishim kor kemach and 60 kor of flour. Asara bakar 10 cattle, briim healthy. The esrim bakar re'i umeat 100 sheep. Levad me ayil, separate from rams, utzvi and deer. The yachmor. What does he say? Yachmor, buffalo. Deer. Some say it's deer. Ubarburim avusim. These are like either fatted geese or fatted chickens. They force feed, like for goose liver. They would force feed, make them fat. The Chidushei Agadol says this was all like side dishes. This isn't even the main meals because of how big his kingdom was and how many visitors he entertained at his table. And of course, we know he had 1,000 wives. Each wife, he had a special house for them. And he would go and have dinner with each one of them separately.
I guess that's why there was a lot of admiration.
Well,
And 1,000 shrigas, eh? Wow.
You gotta admire a guy like that. I mean, there's a Guzma Ba'alma. Do we have any written documentation?
No, remember, Shlomo Melech lived about 1,000 BCE, somewhere between 1,000 and 930 BCE. You know, the first documentary historian was Herodotus, was a Greek historian who documented the Peloponnesian Wars. You're talking about 500 BC. So that's what, you know, you have the Homer wrote the Odyssey and the Iliad. That is claimed to be written about 800 BCE. Prior to that, you have the Torah, you have the Tanakh. So you don't have a written record. You have they found some archaeological stuff from the time of Shlomo Melech, but not documentary evidence.
Well, obviously, Melachim is the document.
Melachim, right? Well, you asked me, is there any historical? I thought you meant like secular history.
No, I just, obviously it's documented, but the question is whether it's a Guzma Ba'alma. It doesn't.
No,
make
but so for example, Josephus Flavius lived at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple.
Right.
So we have documents from Josephus Flavius who mirrors a lot of what is brought by Chazal. So that's what I thought you meant. And do we have like contemporary historical evidence separate from what's written in the Tanakh? So we don't, because what we know as history only started almost 500 years later. That's the first.
Hey, Helen, welcome
Hey,
back.
oh.
Welcome back.
Baruch Roy Pei Cholim.
Amen.
That's a shoe.
Yeah,
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
good to be back.
We are on Melachim Aleph, Perek Hey. We just started the Perek, first couple
Okay.
of
Okay, great.
And I just wanted, the Musar Nevi'im talks about when we brought this Chazal, that eventually Shlomo only ruled over his bed. What does that mean? Mishum de Beit HaMikdash nikra mitashto shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's an allusion that the Beis HaMikdash is also called the Mita of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like it says in Yevamis, Kuf Tes, Ki Beit HaMikdash hu makom menuchato shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We go and rest in our beds. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's his makom menuchaso. Umipnei sheshlomo bana oto, va'asam mita HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lachein zacha gamu lisher melech al mitaso. Even when he was being chased away by the demon, he remained melech over his own mita. The other thing that the Musar Nevi'im brings is the fact that we've learned that Shlomo, in a sense, sinned because he married so many wives. But that's a chet only to the outside world. Ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu yodea ma shebalev. Harei HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoda sheratza Shlomo lekarvan ulachnisan tachas kan ve'ashchina. Shlomo's intent in marrying all these wives was to be makariv them. Umashanasad bat paro etagam kam kina kavno toda. He had the right kavanah in marrying her. Tiratzaba zelit kasher b'brichul shalom in Beit HaMalchut shaita azom shal bekipa. The Egyptian kingdom ruled over the whole world. So it was a chet mi bachutz, but not in bifnim. So he was punished only with things that looked on the outside. But in his own personal bedchamber, he was not. That was his own Malcolm Seser that he remained king over. So that's how some explain.
He talks about the base of Mikdash. He mentioned the Indar temple.
Pasuk Dalet.
Facsimile. He's not hasn't done it yet.
Oh.
I could talk about
Ellen, is your son there?
Yes.
yeah, I just saw where you're up to.
Right,
wanted
by
to
the way, there is maybe you want to comment. We know that they discovered, I think from 800 or 900 BCE, one of the gates that they think go back to Shlomo Melech. You know, it was like a
Yes, so
very
basically,
large, right, a very large gate opening up in the north, right?
yeah, so basically, one of the things it says, there's a debate around this, but what it's referring to is, it says here that Shlomo Melech repaired the gates at Chatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer, which were three major cities on the trade route. So the trade route ran along the coast and then ran up through Megiddo and Chatzor goes into Syria. So the trade route did not run across Jordan. The trade routes run through into Syria and then down into Iraq because he had to follow where the water was. The water was on the Tigris and Euphrates. So that was the trade route that went into the interior of, if you wanted to trade either into Turkey or into Iraq, you had to go north through Chatzor. And basically most towns would have 4-chamber gates, which is you have the outer chamber, you have the outer wall, and then because the gate is the most vulnerable place in a city, because that's where people will enter, there wouldn't be just one door where they could enter, there were a series of gates. At these cities, there are what's called 6-chamber gates. So there's 3 on each side. So you have an additional layer of defense for people attempting to enter. And so at these cities, they discovered that there were these 6-chamber gates as opposed to 4-chamber gates. And it's a question, were they repaired in the 10th century? Were they repaired and built in the 9th century? And that centers around, there's this big debate about the kingdom of Judah versus the kingdom of Israel. When was the kingdom of Judah powerful? Was it in the 10th or in the 9th century? And the debate really kind of goes by, let's say, Hebrew University versus Tel Aviv University. And as you would expect, Hebrew University in Jerusalem tends to lean towards Judah being powerful in the 10th. Tel Aviv University is like, no big Malchus of Shlomo or David. They were just a small, local tribal chieftains in the south in the 9th century who could not compete with the kingdom of Israel. But if you go according to this high chronology, 10th century kingdom of Judah, there is kind of this question of, were those gates built and developed by Shlomo Melech in the 10th century?
Right.
It's more complex than that, but that's the basic. When were those 6-chamber gates repaired? The Tanakh says that Shlomo HaMelech repaired those cities' gates. What does that mean?
Well, as I was telling the group maybe before you came, there is no, we don't have, the documentary evidence began with Herodotus in 500 BCE. We have archaeology, but there's no documents. The only document we have is Sefer Melachim. So why is Tel Aviv University so dismissive of the fact that we have Tanakh? I understand. They claim that it was written much later.
Well, if you wanted to look at archaeology strictly as a science, right, and you don't want to use a religious text, if you don't use the religious text at all, you just start from an archaeological standpoint, then you evaluate it as such. It gets kind of complex, but it's really led by Israel Finkelstein at Tel Aviv University, and he argues the whole thing starts, you have in archaeology, you have layers. So because Israel doesn't have a lot of water, wherever there was water, they pretty much had to stay in that location. So if a city was destroyed, you just built it, you filled it in with dirt and you built on top of it. So you have a lot of these mounds that are really just layers of dirt topped off over centuries. And what happens is that all the pottery in one area collects, and then when you fill that in, the new pottery is used in a certain area. And when that's destroyed, you'll fill that in with dirt, and you probably have some newer pottery in a new area, because pottery developed over time. It comes down to a debate about when was the Philistine pottery. If you use the high chronology, which is prevalent at Hebrew University, you basically start in about 1200 BC. If you use the low chronology, you start in about 1135 or 1120 BC, and that sets the chain in motion. And so it's when you have this gap of about 60 to 80 years, and that's what makes up the difference for later in the use of Tanakh. So if you evaluate it without Tanakh, which is really what you should be doing if you're looking at something scientifically, that's why there's that difference.
Right, but my point being, I was some of the questioners wanted to know if we have records from secular, like if there was hieroglyphics in Egypt documenting any of this. Written history is 500 years later with Herodotus. It's not like we have Josephus Flavius contemporary records during the type of Churban Bayesheni that we can compare what Chazal say and what he said.
You have a few anchors. Basically, you have a Philistine invasion, and you have basically around 1200 BC. You have
but you only have archaeology. You don't have documents.
You most likely have.
I mean, like you said, you have pottery. You don't have a narrative written documentation of anything.
You have Shishaks. You have Shishak. So Shishak invades Israel or Yehuda after Rechavam and Yeravim ben Nevat. Shishak invades. That is recorded.
So that's record. So okay, but so so that's already after Shlomo HaMelech. We don't really have contemporary secular writings regarding David and Shlomo. That's why the Tel Avivniks can say, "Oh, they were a small chieftain."
Yeah. So you have.
But if we believe that Tanakh is older than the theories that they were written by Ezra Sofer and later, so we have written evidence, say from Melachim. I understand. You don't have to have faith. It's not just a religious text. It's a text that has come down to us from that period of time.
I'll give you my personal opinion on that, is that really you see its validity in between the lines. So if there's something very big and miraculous, so a scientist will disregard that, but there happens to be smaller detail in there that would be very hard for somebody to make up centuries later. So as an example, I just used this in my blog post this week, which is Chazael, which you'll get to in Melachim Beis. Chazael is the Aramean king. He was an usurper. So in Melachim Beis, Elisha says to Chazael that he's going to wind up becoming king, and Chazael winds up killing Ben Hadad or Bar Hadad. I forget what name.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Then there is a Assyrian record that calls Chazael the son of a nobody, which would tell you that Chazael was not like the rightful heir, probably somebody that usurped the kingship. That is the kind of detail that somebody's not going to make up 3 centuries later. And that to me is, why you would
there's many examples of that. And
Yes.
I just read this weekend, it was mind-blowing. They're now saying that in 1600 BCE, listen, or 1800 BCE, there was a cosmic airburst. This is how far the atheists are going. There was a cosmic airburst near Sodom, and it was 1,000 times greater than the Hiroshima atomic bomb. and it melted everything near Sodom. Well, we know the Torah says Sodom was wiped out by Hashem, but now there's no, it was a cosmic airburst that Dafka happened at that time. Like a meteor that fell in 1908 in Siberia. In 1908 in Siberia, they claim a meteor fell and destroyed, massive amounts of forests, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they're now trying to say, the same thing happened in Sodom about the same time as when Avram Avinu lived. No, but it's a cosmic airburst because they don't want to
You have to remember one thing. When somebody is an archaeologist and they're operating within the context of science, they cannot, almost by definition, they cannot acknowledge the miraculous.
Okay, so it was a cosmic airburst. Okay. It was a cosmic airburst. I at some point, you have to say how many of these coincidences are not coincidence. They've been documented by Tanakh, and how often is it that we have a cosmic airburst and it so happens right there near Sodom, like what happened in Siberia? I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to point out to you, since you're close to this, and I'll leave you with this,
Yes.
is when you get to the Beis Hamikdash stuff, there's a good facsimile of the shape of the building from the Ein Dara temple. Ein Dara, there was a temple in Syria at a location, Ein Dara. It was actually destroyed either by ISIS or in the bombing of ISIS, but it had very much similar structure to
Do
Shlomo
we have pictures of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you can get us a source
Yeah,
for that.
I'll send you something from it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Pasuk Dalet. The Pasuk tries to give us the extent of Shlomo Melech's geographic reign. Hu rodeh b'chol ever anar. He ruled beyond the Euphrates River, everything west of the Euphrates, up to the Mediterranean Sea. So the Euphrates is all the way in Iraq, from the Euphrates all the way to the Mediterranean.
Is Gaza considered a part of Israel proper?
Well, Gaza is where the Plishtim live. So we never conquered that area, except remember Shimshon conquered it at some point. We gave it back. He never really conquered it. He just did a lot of trouble there. So it says, Mitivsach vad Aza, b'chol malchei Evranar, the other kings that lived, that ruled in that area. V'shalom hayalo mikol avadav misavim. He had peace. Rav Shmuel argue in Sanhedrin Chaf Amud Beis. Tifsach b'sofa olam v'Aza b'sofa olam. One Mandomer says Tifsach is on one end of the world and Aza is on the other end of the world, meaning near the Euphrates. Basically, they're saying that Shlomo ruled from the Euphrates to Aza, and that Tifsach was near the Euphrates and Aza is near the Mediterranean. They were next to each other. And just like he ruled on Tifsach and Aza, he ruled over the whole world. Or let's call it the known world, or the Near East world. And the pasuk immediately follows the pasuk that describes how much food he needed, because it wanted to show how many kingdoms. I think everybody was sending ambassadors. Everybody was sending envoys and dignitaries. So we're told that he had a very large grasp of an area, and that's one of the reasons why he needed all this food. Pasuk Hey. Vayeshev Yehuda v'Yisrael aveta. The tribes of Yehuda and the other tribes of Israel are secure. Ish tachas gafno v'tachas tenaso. Everybody lives under his grapevine and under his fig tree. Midan va'ad Beersheva, from the north to the south, Kol Yemei Shlomo. It describes a very idyllic, peaceful time. There was peace among the brothers. Remember all the stories we've been learning for the last few years? Civil war, strife. That doesn't exist anymore.
But there's already a division between Yehuda and Yisrael.
No, not now.
But he's saying over here,
Well, because the biggest tribe was Yehuda, and the other tribes are known as Yisrael. But at this time, they're together. That's why the pasuk says, Yehuda v'Yisrael aveta. Remember, David HaMelech initially only ruled over Yehuda for the first 7
Right.
years. And then the 33 years last, he put them all together.
right,
So it's telling us that Shlomo is still ruling over the combination. That's going to change with his son Rechava. That's when it splits again.
right.
Rashi says, why are they Kol Yachid v'Yachid ish tachas gafno v'tachas tenoso mifuzorim? They're all living separately in their own areas, but ve'ein tzrichin lit'asef v'leishav yachad and you remember in the time of Shaul, in the time of they were always constantly gathering in Gilgal and here and there to fight. They don't have to do so. They're staying in wherever they live. Rav Schwab says that it wasn't that they were secure at the time without worry. They felt in the future there wouldn't be worry either. They thought there would be even more security in the future. And what Rabbi Schwab says, Kan mita'era pasuk matzav shel chayei am Yisrael shahaya kemo yemot HaMashiach. The pasuk is describing what Mashiach's site is going to look like. The Rav Shefa Bracha, there's going to be blessing. But you notice, says Rav Schwab, nothing is said here about the Matzav Ruchani. It describes everything physical. And whenever the Torah refers to real bracha, it's not just physical bracha, it's bracha Ruchani as well. And even though they haven't really sinned yet, they have not gone up to the level where they need complete bracha. This word Vayeshev, that this pasuk started, Vayeshev Yehuda, it says in Masechtas Sanhedrin Kuf Vav Amud Aleph, Am Rav Yochanan, Kol Makom Shenemer Vayeshev, Eino Elo Lashon Tsar. Whenever a pasuk is introduced by the word Vayeshev, there's always something bad coming. Like it says, Vayeshev Yisrael Bashitim, Vayachel ha'am liznot el bnot Moab. Right after the brachas of the klolos of Bilam, right before this, Pinchas Zimri, it says that the Jewish people were sitting in Shittim, and then they began having promiscuity with the daughters of law. Another example, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz mugurei aviv be'eretz Knan. Vayaveh Yosef es dibatam ra'al aviyem. Immediately we're told Yosef is bringing lashon hara about the brothers to the father. Or it said, Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen. Vayikrevu yemei Yisrael lamud. And now Yaakov is going to die. So Vayeshev is bad news coming. And the bad news that's going to come is Vayakom Hashem Sotim L'Shlomo Es Hadar Amonim Yisrael Melachu Be'edom. So the like we talked about, that the seeds of the Churban is already being sown by some of the activities of Shlomo HaMelech, as we've described. And the Vayeshev, the Torah Chaim tells us, is from Vayeshev. Vay is like, woe is to me. And that's why it says sometimes, whenever it says Vayhi Bimei, right? Vayhi Bimei Achashverosh. That's also, it's about to tell a bad story about Haman. So there, Vayhi also Eino El Lashon Tsar. The Haya is a Lashon Simcha. Pasuk Vav. Vahi lishlomo 40,000 urvot susim lemerkavo. Shlomo HaMelech had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariot. Ushnemasar elef parashim. Now, there's a machloka. Some say it's stables. Some say they're individual stalls. There are calculations that if you say that they were stables, Shlomo had 160 million horses. And the lowest, the Marie Cross says he had 40,000 horses, 160,000 horses. Whatever shot you learn, he had an awful lot of horses.
The Abarbanel says that he had 4,000 stalls, and each stall were 10 horses.
Right. So right there is 400,000. So
No, 40,000.
40,000.
40,000. He had 4,000 stalls of 10 in each stall.
right, but I'm just reading you the multiple Perushim. That's the Abarbanel. Some
Yeah.
say the Abarbanel,
The
that
Metzudas
4,000 is not
of-
stalls, it's stables.
Yeah.
So there's a machlokas exactly how many horses he had, but he had either 40,000, 160,000, 160 million. Now, the Kli Yakar says that they were scattered throughout this huge area. You know, the Euphrates to the Mediterranean is a huge area. It incorporates Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Palestine. So they're not on one place. They're not on Yerushalayim. Now, the Torah gives us a parsha of the Melech. And it says beferish, lo yarbelo susim, that a Jewish king should not have a lot of horses. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin Chaf Aleph says, Amrav Yitzchak, mipnei ma lo nitgalu tamei Torah. We have 613 mitzvahs. The vast majority of the mitzvahs, we're not given a reason why we do the mitzvah. The Mora Nevuchim, the great philosophical work of the Rambam, spends all of chapter 3 on Tamei HaMitzvahs. He tries to derive reasons for the mitzvahs. But the Gemara points out that the Torah itself does not give us reasons. And it gives us the reason why. Sharei shte mikraot nitgalu taman, nichshal bahen gadol. There were two places in the Torah where we were told the reason for a mitzvah. And the greatest mind, the greatest person made a mistake. Ksiv, lo yabelo nashim, v'lo yasur levavo. In the pasuk in Dvarim, it says a Jewish king should not have a lot of wives. Why? They're going to turn his heart away. Omer Shlomo, ani arbe v'lo asur. Since it was revealed what the reason was, Shlomo says, I can have a lot of wives, and it's not going to dissuade me. Uksiv, later on in Perek Yud Aleph, it says, Vayila eit zikna, Shlomo, that when Shlomo got older, Nashav hi tut levavo. Shlomo's wives turned his heart. Then it says, Rak lo yarbelo susim, v'lo yashiv et ha'am Mitzrayim alaman harbotzus. So the Torah says, why shouldn't the Jewish king have a lot of horses? Because he's going to use the horses to take the Jewish people back to Egypt. Omar Shlomo, ani arbe v'lo ashiv. So Shlomo said, I'm smart enough. I'll have a lot of horses. I won't bring them back. However, later on in Perek Yud, Vatala v'tetzei merkava miMitzrayim b'sheish, that eventually horses and Jews did go back to Mitzrayim.
Didn't, isn't this similar to what David did, asking to be tested?
In a way, Rav Yitzchak is saying that's why even the two places, you see what happens if you have reasons for mitzvah. Shlomo Melech, the greatest person was, at least intellectually, failed in both of those areas.
By the way, just to say what Barbara Nell says about the horses, okay, because they had to go back to Egypt to pick up all those horses. But he suggests the following, that Shlomo rationalized that he was acting appropriately in amassing the horses because he did it to enhance the national security as a deterrent against potential enemies. Although Shlomo was at peace with the neighboring countries, this may have been precisely because he had an immense cavalry and other countries avoided confrontations with him. So
He did it he's describing deterrent. He's describing deterrence. He had it for deterrence.
He had it for deterrent. It's not like he was going against, he didn't want to have war with anybody. So basically, just like Reagan's playbook, you have a strong country, people don't start up with you. So that's what he did. That's how the Obama now rationalizes that.
Okay. He thought, listen, today, the svor of going back to Mitzrayim doesn't matter. Today, Mitzrayim is coming to me, Shlomo said. And I married Paro. So why would I bring them back?
No, but Mitzrayim, the reason why you're not supposed to go to Mitzrayim, basically don't go back. The halacha there is because you have to go pick up the horses. You have horses, where do they come from? The Egyptian horses. So you would have to go back. So then that's going to cause the people to go back to think, but that to Egypt. But with Shlomo Melech, that never happened. Maybe it happened afterwards. I'm not sure. We don't, just like that, we don't have historical. The Torah is telling us he shouldn't have done that. I mean, we're learning that, but we don't know for a fact here. Did people go back?
Now the Ramban doesn't agree with Rashi. The Ramban in Chumash brings the Yerushalmi in the end of Sanhedrin. It says, "Liyeshiva yata chozer." A Jewish king cannot go back to Mitzrayim to settle there. Aval ata chozer lischora leprakamatya lukibush haaretz. But you could go to Mitzrayim to do business, even to conquer. Says the Ramban. And he brings also, that he was going to have it for security and for bitachon and all that. And so the Ramban says that was the ched. Because really they should have relied on HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Yeshua of Hashem, and not Sheker Asus Litshua. So, different pshatim, but what we see here, that Shlomo HaMelech, in his mind, that after he built the base of Mikdash, he thought this is Yemot HaMashiach, and that all the nations are going to come to him, recognize Malchus Shamayim, and that's why he wanted everything peace, and that's why he had a lot of horses, so that he could watch carefully over the Malchus. And because he wanted to be a dugma of Malchus Shamayim, because he in his mind he was creating Yemos HaMashiach. And Susim, the warning against horses is like if the kings who would race horses, or they would just be lazy, not if they were going to work. Not like, for example, he had 12,000 chariots with horses. That's okay. That's needed. It's not l'koved l'gdula that they're just going to sit around and do nothing. So that's how some of the Meforshim want to say that Shlomo Melech didn't really sin in this way by gathering a lot of horses. Zion. We talked last week about the representatives that represented the 12 different economic zones that sent taxes in to pay for all of this. Every month, each netziv had to send their, whatever their amount that they were supposed to send in, they had to send in month. The barley and the straw, lasusim, v'larechesh, for the horses and for the other animals. Everything was sent, misudar, organized, we're talking about a very organized system of providing goods that were needed for the animals and for the people.
So actually what they're saying is that Shlomo had a very peaceful reign.
Very peaceful. Pasuk Tes. Vayiten Elokim Chachma l'Shlomo. So number one, Chachma. Then it says Utvuna Harbe Me'od. So that's Bina. And then Verochav Lev, a wide heart. That's a third, whatever that is, right? Chachma, Tvuna, Rochav Lev. Kachol Asher Al Tzfat Hayam, like the sands of the oceans.
Ernie,
Oh,
sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, but if you look at Pasuk Tet, so you see in chronological order, I don't know if there's ein mukdam or mu'achar for the Tanakh like there is in the Torah, but
There
you
is
see,
same issue. Ein mukdam u'muchar b'Torah.
well, so that could be, but you see that the Tanakh is coming to tell you, hey, listen, this guy was Kodesh Baruch Hu blessed him with all, went through all the things that he was blessed with, susim and food and all the thing and everything else. And it seems from the chronological order that seems that it's a bracha from Hashem, because Pasuk Tet tells you that.
Why is this chokmah compared to the chol, to the sands of the sea? So Bamidbar Rabbah says, so Nasan l'chokmah keneged kol Yisrael. Shenemar Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabim kachol asher alayam. Right, since the Jewish people were described populace-wise as kachol, and he had wisdom as if he was compared to all of Klal Yisrael. Rav Levi says something else. Machol geder layam. What is the sand? The sand is the limit where the water goes. The water doesn't flood Santa Monica and the rest of Los Angeles. It stops where the sand is. Kach hayta chochma gdura lishlomo. His chochma also had a geder. Yesh mi sheyesh bo chachma, ach ein hu mitnaheg bo b'derech hachayim shelo. V'zeu mishum shetzaveh sheben chazaka yoter mikol chachmato. Aval lo ken Shlomo. Chachma shlomo kegeder lifnei hatay b'shebo. He was able to use his chachma to control his appetites, and that means it had a geder like kachol. The Meforshim say when it says chachma, it doesn't just mean Chochmah the Torah, it means the scientific Chochmah as well. Tvuna is having davar mitoch davar. He can deduce things from other things and new things and come up with chidushim. Rochav lev means he can keep it all in order. It doesn't all get mixed up.
Could it be that like Chachma is like intellectual smarts, and Bina could be wisdom?
We I saw that. We went through that. So Chachma, according to the Malbim, is the ability to choose between conflicting character traits. For example, to be humble is wise, to be arrogant is foolish. To love is wise, to hate is foolish. To be kind is wise, to be cruel is foolish. Shlomo was able to control his inclinations and channel them correctly. That's Chachma. Now, Bina is understanding, which is mastering individual branches of knowledge. Tvuna refers to the ability to assimilate and utilize the entire corpus of knowledge and understanding, and the ability to compare and draw conclusions from areas of knowledge that superficially seem to be unrelated. So it's not just knowledge, but it's also the ability to work with the knowledge and to see comparing and contrasting and all of that. Vaterev chochmat Shlomo mechachmat kol bnei kedem. Shlomo's wisdom was greater. Who is bnei kedem? Bnei kedem means the East. Who's in the East? The Chinese, Confucius, and great Indian thinkers. Umikol chochmas Mitzrayim. Remember, there were astrologers and Kishuf in Mitzrayim. So the Bnei Kedem in the East, they were expert at astrology. And the Psikta says they knew the language of birds, and Mitzrayim were expert in B'chochmas HaTeva, science at that time, weather. And that's why they were able to switch. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Paro, they also could do things with their sticks. That either through science or Kochatuma. So besides Chochmas Torah, there's Chochma Bagoyim. Right? Torah Bagoyim al Tamim. But Chochma Bagoyim Tamim. That's what Chazal say. If Goyim claim they have Torah, you're not supposed to believe them. If they have Chochma, we know they have Chochma. The Bnei Kedem, the EIM wants to say these are the Chinese. We know that they had great scholars at that time. And Shlomo were greater than them. He learned astrology and he knew whatever science at that time. Yud Aleph. Vayechkami kol adam. He was smarter than any man. Me'etana ezrachi. We'll see who that is. Veheman, v'chalkol, v'darda. These are four people. Eitan, Heman, Kalkol, Darda, who are the Bnei Machol. Vayishmo b'chol hagoyim saviv. And the whole world recognized the wisdom of Shlomo Melech. These were famous geniuses at the time. Who are these people? Rashi says, Elu hayu achim bnei Zerach ben Yehuda. Because in Divra, this is Peretz, right? Yehuda had two children, Peretz and Zorach. In Divra Yomim it says uvnei Zerach, Zimri, ve'etan, ve'heman, ve'chalkol, ve'dara, kulam chamisha. So these are all the people mentioned here. So Eitan Ezrachi means they were the children of Zorah. And why are they called Bnei Machol? Because they knew how to compose music for dances. Mecholot means dances in a circle. There are various in Tehillim, Maskil Eitana Ezrachi, or Maskil Peches is Maskil Leheimana Ezrachi. So some of the Tehillim were written by these Chachamim. Now, the Radak doesn't agree. These were Levium, so they can't be the children of Yehuda. Now, Chazal go in a completely different direction. And this is in the Psikta de Rav Kahana. When it says, Vayechkami kol adam ze Adam Arishon. Shlomo Melech was smarter than Adam Arishon. Why was Adam Arishon so smart. Shahaya Yitzir Kapav Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. He was created by Hashem. We know that he gave all the animals names, and wherever he said this is where people are going to dwell, they're going to dwell. So we had Chochmah. Eitan ze Avram Avinu. He's the great one. And then Maskil Eitana Ezrachi. That's referring to Avram Avinu. Heyman ze Moshe. Like it says in the parsha we just learned this Shabbos. Lochein avdi Moshe b'chol beiti ne'manu. So the word Heyman is from the word Ne'man. And says the Psikta Rabbah, after Moshe hayagodol b'neviim, Shlomo hayagodol b'menu b'chachma. V'chal kol ze Yosef. D'chsiv v'ychalkel Yosef et aviv et achav. Yosef provided sustenance for his father's brothers in all Mitzrayim. He knew all the 70 languages, Yosef. V'darda zedor midbar. B'nai Machal is Yisrael, and they're called B'nai Machal because HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave them Machla lahem when they made the Egel. That's the Psikta Rabbah. And Shlomo Melech was greater than them in all of it. Walter was reading from the Abarbanel. The Abarbanel answers some of our questions. He says, Chochma Shlomo, Haisa Chochma B'derech HaNes. She'isiget HaKol min HaKodam LaMu'uchar B'yediyam Pitomid. He understood everything from the beginning to the end immediately. Not step by step. Normal, the Chochma Regila, Lo yuchal lasiga rak al yedei hasagas hachushim. You need your senses, your eyes, your ears. Uva amal, uva yegia, uva rav zman. You need to study and you work and you need time. You can make a mistake. He got his wisdom, he got everything with the roots. I want to end with the following. Rabbeinu Bachai says, Shlomo lamad kol chachmato min haTorah. He brings this in the first pasuk in Bereshis, that all the scientific knowledge he also had it from the Torah. That's what the Rabbeinu Bachai said. Now, I wanted to tell a story here. This story is written. There used to be a principal of Yulat, Rav David Landesman, Zichrono Livracha. Some of you may remember him. He was a wonderful man. We used to have a lot of discussions. He wrote 2 books, essays. One of them is called "There Are No Basketball Courses in Heaven," because many of the essays were written for high school students. One of the essays he wrote is Avram Karelitz, MD. Who's Avram Karelitz? That's the Chazon Ish, who died in 1954, was the Gadol Hador in Eretz Yisrael. And he relates in the essay. So there's a story in the late 40s, early 50s. Neurosurgery is not that old of a surgical practice. You're going to have to.
I'll just come to sit in the living room.
You have to sit them in the living room.
Okay. I know this story.
So the neurosurgeons who were at Hadassah, I don't know which hospital they were at, they had a brain tumor and they didn't know exactly how to approach it. They went to the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish drew a picture about the anatomy, and that's how they fought, and they did the surgery this way. And I had read this story, And I read the biography of the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish grew up in Vilna and lived in Vilna until Rav Chaim Ozer, who was the Gadol Ador, he passed away in 1940, sent the Chazon Ish to Israel, like in 1939, 1940. Chazon Ish only arrived in Israel. He was only there for 10 or 15 years. He lived the majority of his life in Vilna. The biography I read said that he lived right next door to the Royal Vilnius Library. So when I heard the story of the Chazon Ish became very involved in Israel as well, in Trumas, Maestros. There are famous stories of the Chazon Ish going out to the kibbutzim on a tractor. He would be put on it. He wanted to see the borders of Eretz Yisrael. He knew electricity. He got involved. If he got involved in something, he went right to the bottom of it. My understanding was that the Chazon Ish, so the word was, the Chazon Ish had Das Torah, that the anatomy that he told the neurosurgeons, somehow he found it in the Torah. I told Rav Landesman, I think it's more logical to think that at some point the Chazon Ish maybe was learning Chulin or other Masechtos which talk about anatomy, and he went to the Royal Vilnius Library to look up an anatomy, and he learned the anatomy that way. So Landesman writes in an article, he says, I spoke to a doctor in Los Angeles. He happens to teach Daf Yomi. He actually mentioned the urologist, and that we had this discussion that I might disagree that perhaps the Chazon Ish didn't get it from Das Torah, but he got it because he was the type of Talmid Chacham who could go into a library and learn. Now, it could be that the Chazon Ish did get it through Das Torah and through Ruach HaKodesh. The thing is, I don't know anywhere in Torah that describes neuroanatomy. Now, maybe there's Zohar, maybe there's things we don't know. But when I saw this Rabbeinu Bachai, that Shlomo HaMelech learned even his scientific knowledge from the Torah, it reminded me of the story about what they said about the Chazon Ish, that he guided a neurosurgical case through his Das Torah. Okay, so I got almost to where I wanted to get to. Yeah, I wanted to get to Tes Vav. We got a few psukim short, but we'll finish most likely this parak next week. Any questions, comments, ha'arot from anybody
Be back.
about the story I just told or about anything we said today?
I just said I'm glad to be back.
We're
Glad to have you
we're
back.
so happy
Ellen,
you're
we're
here.
so happy you're back.
We're so.
Good night.
Yashika.
Shavua Tov.
Good night.
Have a good.
Sure.